When God is preparing you for a blessing, one of the first things he often does is remove and prune areas of your life that are not aligned with the destiny he has for you. This process can feel uncomfortable and even painful, but it is one of the most powerful indicators that something greater is on the way. Pruning is a process in which unnecessary or harmful elements are cut away to allow for healthy growth, and that is exactly what God does in your life. There may be people who once played a significant role in your journey who suddenly distance themselves, or relationships that come to an unexpected end. There may be opportunities you were counting on that close without explanation, or habits and comfort zones that no longer satisfy you. At first it can feel like loss or punishment, but it is actually divine preparation. God knows what you cannot see. He knows who or what might hinder your blessing or sabotage your next level, so he clears the path for you even when you don't understand why. Think about a gardener tending to a tree. A gardener cuts away dead branches, but he also cuts back branches that are healthy but are growing in the wrong direction. The purpose of pruning is always to produce more fruit and stronger growth. In the same way, God removes not only the things that are clearly harmful, but also the things that may seem fine on the surface, but are not aligned with his greater plan for you. It is not that the people, places, or opportunities were necessarily bad, but they are not part of the season he is leading you into. This is why it is so important not to hold on too tightly to anything or anyone that God is trying to remove from your life. If he allows it to leave, it is because he has something better prepared. During this pruning season, you might feel confused because things you thought were permanent begin to shift. You may even question whether you did something wrong. But pruning is not punishment. It is evidence that you are loved and chosen for more. God disciplines and corrects those he loves, and he will not allow you to settle for less than his best. Sometimes he has to break attachments to comfort zones because he knows you will never step into the fullness of your destiny if you remain where you are. This can include friendships that are holding you back, jobs that keep you stuck, or even habits and mindsets that limit your growth. When God removes these things, it is to make room for the blessing that is coming. It is also important to remember that God does not prune without purpose. Every cut has intention behind it. There is something ahead that requires you to be lighter, freer, and more focused. If you try to hold on to everything, the weight of what you are carrying could crush you when the blessing arrives. God's desire is to position you so that you can fully receive and steward what he is about to release. That means you must trust him even when you do not understand why he is taking certain things away. Surrender is key in this season. If you let go of what he is pruning, you will find that he replaces it with something far better. Many of the greatest breakthroughs in life are preceded by a season of loss or separation. Joseph had to be separated from his family before he could step into his destiny in Egypt. Ruth had to leave her homeland before she met Boaz. Abraham had to leave his familiar surroundings before God could make him the father of nations. In each case, the removal was necessary for the greater blessing to come. If you are experiencing pruning right now, do not be discouraged. It is a sign that God is preparing you for something bigger than you can imagine. Trust the process, trust his heart, and know that everything he removes is making room for the abundant blessing that is on its way to you. When God is preparing you for a blessing, one of the clearest signs is that he allows you to go through seasons of isolation and testing to build your character. These moments can feel lonely, and at times you may wonder why God seems distant or why people who once surrounded you are no longer there. But what feels like rejection is often divine redirection. God sets you apart from distractions so that he can work deeply in your heart. Isolation is never meant to harm you, it is meant to shape you. It is in these quiet, hidden seasons that God develops the traits you will need to handle the blessings he has planned for you. Without this process, you might not be strong enough to carry the weight of what he intends to place in your hands. Throughout Scripture, we see that those God used mightily often experienced seasons of isolation. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep before God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. David was on the backside of the fields tending sheep before he was anointed as king. Even Jesus, after being baptized, was led into the wilderness for 40 days of fasting and testing before beginning his public ministry. Each of these individuals was set apart and stripped of distractions so that their hearts could be prepared for the magnitude of their assignment. Your season of isolation serves the same purpose. God is refining your faith, purifying your motives, and stripping away any dependency on people or things so that you will learn to lean solely on Him. Testing often accompanies isolation because God uses challenges to reveal what is truly in your heart. When everything is going well, it is easy to say you trust God, but true faith is forged in the fire of difficulty. These tests are not meant to destroy you, but to develop you. They teach you perseverance, patience, humility, and total reliance on God. You may be tested in your finances, relationships, or even in your emotional strength, but each test is designed to prepare you for the greater responsibility that comes with the blessing. God does not want you to enter your next level with weak foundations. He will test your heart so that when the blessing comes, you will be able to handle it with wisdom and integrity. This season can be misunderstood by others because they cannot see what God is doing in your heart. People may think you are wasting time or that nothing significant is happening in your life, but hidden growth is the most important growth. Just as a seed must be buried in the ground where no one can see it before it can sprout, you must go through hidden seasons before you are ready to be elevated. This process requires patience because it is natural to want to be seen and validated. However, rushing ahead of God's timing can cause you to step into positions or blessings you are not ready for. Isolation teaches you the value of waiting on God and trusting His timing above your own desires. As difficult as it may feel, embrace the season of being set apart. Use it as an opportunity to draw closer to God, to develop your prayer life, to strengthen your character, and to allow Him to deal with the areas of your heart that need healing. This is not wasted time, it is sacred preparation. When you allow God to complete the work He is doing in private, He will position you for public blessing. What He builds in you during isolation will sustain you when the blessing arrives. So, do not despise this season and do not rush through it. Know that God is using it to make you strong enough, wise enough, and ready enough for what He is about to release into your life. When God is preparing you for a blessing, you may notice an increase in unusual warfare, and this is one of the clearest indicators that you are close to your breakthrough. The enemy does not waste energy attacking someone who is not a threat. The fact that you are facing unexpected challenges, opposition from different directions, and spiritual battles that seem relentless is a sign that you are about to step into a new level of blessing and purpose. Satan knows he cannot stop God's plan for your life, but he will do everything in his power to discourage you, distract you, and make you give up before you receive what God has prepared for you. This is why the pressure often intensifies right before the promise manifests. The attacks can take many forms. You might experience tension in your relationships, financial struggles, emotional heaviness, or even health challenges. Things that used to be easy suddenly become difficult. Doors that were open may suddenly close. People you trusted might turn their backs on you or misunderstand your intentions. It can feel like you are being attacked from every side, and you may even question whether you are doing something wrong. But the truth is that unusual warfare is often a sign that you are doing something right. The enemy can sense that God is moving in your life, and his strategy is to wear you down so that you lose faith in the process. This is not a time to retreat or compromise. It is a time to stand firm in your faith and use the spiritual authority God has given you. Warfare reveals the importance of prayer like never before. You cannot fight spiritual battles with natural weapons. You must put on the full armor of God and remain steadfast in His word. This is when you lean into your prayer life, fasting if you are led, and declaring God's promises over your situation. Remind yourself daily that no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and that the enemy's attacks will not succeed because God is on your side. The very fact that you are facing such resistance is evidence that there is something worth fighting for on the other side. One of the most powerful things to remember in this season is that God uses warfare to strengthen you. Just as resistance builds muscle in the natural, spiritual opposition builds strength in your faith. Every time you choose to trust God despite the attacks, you are growing in endurance and perseverance. These qualities are essential for sustaining the blessing once it arrives. God does not want you to crumble under pressure when you step into the next level, so He allows these battles to prepare you for greater responsibility. What feels like a setback is actually training ground for the strength you will need in your future. Warfare also has a way of sharpening your discernment. You begin to see the enemy's tactics more clearly and learn how to guard your heart and mind. You become more sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit, and you learn to depend fully on God for guidance and protection. This level of spiritual awareness is vital because blessings often bring new challenges and responsibilities. By facing warfare now, you are learning how to navigate the pressures that come with elevation. So, when you find yourself in a season where attacks seem relentless, don't be discouraged. See it as confirmation that you are on the right track. The enemy would not be fighting you so hard if you were not close to your breakthrough. Hold on to God's promises, stay anchored in prayer, and refuse to give up. Your perseverance in the midst of warfare is evidence that the blessing is near. The attacks you are enduring will not last forever, but the strength, faith, and character you gain through them will position you to fully embrace the blessing God is about to release into your life. When God is preparing you for a blessing, one of the most powerful signs is that He begins to stretch your faith beyond your comfort zone. This stretching often comes in the form of instructions or opportunities that do not make sense to your natural mind. God will ask you to take steps that seem bigger than your current ability, resources, or understanding. It can feel risky, and at times you may question whether you heard Him correctly, but this is exactly how He grows your faith. Faith that is never stretched will never grow. God knows that the blessing He is preparing for you requires a stronger level of trust than you have right now, so He allows situations that force you to lean completely on Him. When God asked Abraham to leave his homeland, He did not show him the entire plan. He simply said, "Go to the land I will show you." Abraham had to trust God without knowing the details. Similarly, God may ask you to walk away from a job, invest in something you do not fully understand, forgive someone who deeply hurt you, or start a project with no guarantee of success. These instructions may make you uncomfortable because they stretch you beyond your logic and abilities, but that is the point. God does not want you to rely on your own strength. He wants you to rely on Him. Your comfort zone may feel safe, but it is also where dreams and destiny stagnate. Blessings often exist on the other side of obedience, and obedience often requires faith. This stretching season can also manifest as unexpected challenges. You may face situations where you have no control and cannot see how things will work out. It can be unsettling, but it is in these moments that you learn God's faithfulness. You discover that He is your provider, your healer, your protector, and your guide. If life were always predictable and comfortable, you would have no reason to depend on God. But when you are stretched, you begin to see His power in ways you never would have otherwise. What seems like a trial is actually training ground for the greater responsibility that comes with the blessing. Faith stretching also builds endurance. There will be times when God gives you a promise, but its fulfillment takes longer than you expect. Waiting can feel exhausting, and you may be tempted to give up or settle for less, but every delay has a purpose. God uses the waiting period to deepen your faith, teach you patience, and prepare you for what's ahead. If you quit too soon, you will miss the fullness of what God has in store. Stretching your faith teaches you how to hold on to His word even when you see no evidence of change. Another key aspect of this process is that God will often ask you to take small steps of faith before the bigger blessing comes. These small acts of obedience may seem insignificant, but they prepare you for larger opportunities. If you can be faithful in the little things, God knows He can trust you with greater things. This is why it is so important not to ignore the small nudges of the Holy Spirit. Each step of faith builds your spiritual confidence and aligns you with God's timing. So, if you are in a season where God is asking you to do things that feel uncomfortable or uncertain, do not resist it. Recognize that He is building your capacity for the blessing He is about to release. Faith grows when it is stretched, and the blessing on the other side will require you to operate at a higher level of trust. The more you obey God, even when it does not make sense, the more you will see His hand at work. This process may be challenging, but it is preparing you to step boldly into the abundant future God has planned for you. When God is preparing you for a blessing, another clear sign is the arrival of divine alignments and connections. These are moments when God begins to strategically bring the right people, opportunities, and resources into your life at the perfect time. It is not coincidence or luck, it is God's hand moving on your behalf. These connections often appear unexpectedly, and they carry purpose. You may meet someone who speaks a word of encouragement that shifts your perspective, or someone may open a door of opportunity that you could not have accessed on your own. Divine alignments are orchestrated by God to position you exactly where you need to be so that the blessing He has prepared can manifest. Throughout the Bible, we see examples of how God uses divine connections to move His people into their destiny. Ruth, for example, was divinely aligned with Boaz. Her decision to follow Naomi placed her in the right field at the right time, and that connection changed the course of her life forever. Joseph, after years of difficulty, met the cupbearer in prison, and that relationship eventually led him to the palace where he fulfilled his God-given purpose. Even Jesus' ministry was marked by divine connections with his disciples and those who supported his work. In each case, the people they encountered were placed in their path by God as part of a larger plan. When divine alignments begin to happen in your life, you will often notice doors opening that were previously closed. You may receive opportunities that seem far beyond your qualifications or that come seemingly out of nowhere. These open doors are signs that God is positioning you for elevation. At the same time, He may close doors to relationships or opportunities that are not meant for you. Though it can be painful when doors close, it is part of God's alignment. He knows which connections will help propel you forward and which ones would hold you back. Trust that every closed door is making room for the right one to open. It is also important to recognize that divine connections are not always about what you can receive. They are often about what you can give. God may connect you to someone because He wants you to be a blessing to them. The relationship may be mutual, where you encourage and uplift each other as you both walk out your calling. This perspective keeps you humble and reminds you that the purpose of these alignments is bigger than just personal gain. Being sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit is key in this season. Divine connections are easy to miss if you are distracted or too focused on your own plans. God may lead you to reach out to someone, attend an event, or take a step that seems small, but it could be the catalyst for the next phase of your life. Pay attention to the people He is bringing into your path and be willing to discern who is sent by God and who is not. Not every connection is divine, and not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Prayerfully seek God's guidance so that you can recognize the relationships and opportunities that align with His will. When these alignments occur, they often bring confirmation that you are on the right path. You will feel a sense of peace and purpose in the connections God orchestrates. They will push you closer to your destiny and strengthen your faith in His timing. If you are currently noticing new relationships forming, unexpected opportunities arising, or resources becoming available that you could not have arranged yourself, see these as signs of divine alignment. God is moving pieces into place so that when the blessing arrives, you will be fully equipped and positioned to receive it. Trust His orchestration and remain open, because the people and opportunities He is sending now may be the very key to unlocking the next level of your life. When God is preparing you for a blessing, one of the most important things He does is work on your internal transformation before the external blessing arrives. This means He begins to deal with your heart, your mindset, your habits, and your relationship with Him, so that you are ready to handle what He is about to place in your life. Many people desire blessings, but God knows that if He gives you something too soon, it can become a burden instead of a blessing. This is why He focuses on who you are becoming more than what you are receiving. Your heart must be aligned with His will so that the blessing does not corrupt you, distract you, or lead you away from Him. This internal work often starts with renewing your mind. You may find yourself becoming more aware of negative thoughts, fear, or limiting beliefs that have held you back. God will begin to replace those thoughts with His truth. He may lead you to scriptures that remind you of His promises or allow experiences that stretch your perspective and teach you to think bigger. The way you think determines how you live, and blessings require a mindset that can see possibilities instead of problems. If your thinking is small or bound by doubt, you will not be able to steward the larger opportunities He is preparing for you. This is why God works to shift your perspective and teach you to walk by faith. As He transforms your mind, He will also begin to work on your heart. He may reveal areas where you need to forgive others or release bitterness. Carrying unforgiveness can block blessings because it weighs down your spirit and clouds your ability to hear from God clearly. He may also convict you about habits or attitudes that do not align with his character. This is not because he wants to shame you, but because he wants to free you from anything that would sabotage your future. A blessing is not just about what you receive, it is about becoming the kind of person who can handle it well and use it for God's glory. You may also notice that during this season, your desire for God himself begins to grow stronger. You find yourself longing for his presence more than anything else. Prayer, worship, and time in the Word become more meaningful because God is drawing you closer. He wants you to understand that he is the source of every good thing in your life, and that your identity and joy must be rooted in him, not in the blessing. This intimacy with God is what will sustain you long after the blessing arrives. Without a strong relationship with him, it is easy to idolize the gift instead of the giver. Gratitude also becomes a key part of this internal transformation. God teaches you to appreciate what you already have instead of constantly focusing on what you lack. Gratitude shifts your perspective and prepares you to handle greater responsibility. When you can be thankful in small things, you show God that you are ready for bigger things. He will not release more into your life if you are ungrateful for what is already there. Ultimately, the internal work God does is a sign of his love and wisdom. He knows that blessings can test your character just as much as trials can. If your heart is not prepared, the weight of success or abundance could cause you to crumble. But when you allow him to purify your motives, renew your mind, deepen your gratitude, and draw you closer to him, you will be in the best position to receive and sustain the blessing. This is why internal transformation is one of the most powerful indicators that God is preparing you for something great. The changes you see in your heart and spirit are evidence that he is building a foundation strong enough to handle what is coming.